So I've seen Scream 7, and I'm going to review it a bit later on. And oh, I have thoughts. I have thoughts on this. Um, Hello, welcome to the Ministry of Horror. My name is Tez. As per usual, this is your one-stop shop for horror news, reviews, and occasionally featured presentations when I'm have any level of preparation, which is rare. Does happen sometimes, but it is rare. Yeah, we're finally getting around to doing the proper review show. It's just, yeah, I don't really have any excuses. What I will say is I did record a full spoiler chat on my opinions on Scream 7. That is on the Patreon, patreon.com/Ministry of Horror. You can either join for free, where you'll get the weekly, semi-weekly blogs from me, but also the different paid tier memberships have different perks, and it helps support the show and keeps the show going, so it's very much appreciated. This is our Patreon shout out to our patrons Gruff and of course JP along with Bericles. Thank you very much, guys. Your continued support helps massively. So yeah, if you're not already following it, you can be a free follower, and it just helps build the follower count, and it helps build the exposure of the show. So there's the shameless plug out the way. Yeah, I did a bonus show yesterday, and I went in heavy. I'm not going to bury the lead too much. We'll talk about the film later on. I'll go into as little spoilers as possible. It's going to be difficult to fully relay my thoughts on the film without getting into any spoiler territory. But I will do my best. I may have to do a little bit of a, heads up. There may be certain elements of the film that get ruined in the review. I don't know. I'll try and do my best to be as vague as possible when it comes to key reveals, plot points, etc., etc. There's been no new additions on the Ministry of Horror. I'm going to have to think of a name for the shelving. The Ministry of Horror curated horror collection. The actual shelving itself, which, if you're listening to the audio, you won't know what I'm talking about. Behind me, I have my collection of physical media. The top half of the shelf is a mixture of films and whatnot that are on my eBay account. There's a few things on there like Hellraiser, Deader, or Hellseeker, one of the crappy later sequels. But then there was also some, editions and films and whatnot that I just haven't, and games that I haven't found appropriate shelving space for. I do eventually want to get the top of that cleared because it does look messy. But it is just finding the appropriate placement without trying to build too much more onto it. But I do feel that what we have on the shelves is, what I would want to keep and not what I would want to sell on. I mean, there's a few things on there which hopefully at some point down the line better editions will come out for. I've got a collection of was it Halloween 4, 5 and 6, I believe, or Halloween 6 H2O and Resurrection, something like that. I've got that on is it Blu-ray or DVD? Halloween triple feature on Blu-ray, but then also up here is the Halloween collection, which is Halloween's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on just a DVD collection. So that's the reason for that, is to have, I suppose, 3, 4, and 5. I'm not that fussed with 3. I know, sacrilege, because people love it, but 4 and 5. And then there's a Blu-ray kind of combi pack of 6, which I do enjoy 6 for its faults. H20, H2O, whatever you want to call it. I think it should be H20 because it's 20 years later. And Resurrection, which is a steaming pile of dog crap. So I would like to have better editions of those, Blu-ray, ideally 4K, but, they're the ones that kind of stick out at the moment in the collection. And then I think downstairs I've got my copy of Near Dark, which is on DVD, because it's there's not really that many decent editions readily available of Near Dark, but that's something, again, I would like to get a nice Blu-ray or a 4K edition of that. And I think my holy grail items that are left really at the moment are Fright Night Part 2. I know that there's movement in America, I believe, for a 4K release of that. So hopefully someone like Arrow, 88 Films 101, Second Sight, probably not, but Second Sight, would pick up the UK distribution for that. Scream Factory, maybe. That's what I would like to add to the collection, because I'm a huge fan of Fright Night 1 and Fright Night 2 I've seen years ago, and I've seen it on YouTube in a very low res edition, but I would like to kind of, complete that duology of films. So anyway, as I mentioned, we're going to be reviewing Scream 7 a bit later on. I'm also going to finally be reviewing Together, the Dave Franco, Alison Brie film that I've wanted to see for a little while. I missed it at the cinema. It's been one of those films where I've kept hovering over it on the Prime store for weeks at a time, sort of going, £5 rental. Do I really want to rent it now? Oh, I don't know about that. It's down to the £3 rental, and then I'd sort of forgotten about it. And then it turned up on Prime. So we're going to be reviewing that a bit later on. In other news, though, I have been playing Resident Evil Requiem. And I say playing, I've barely done like an hour or so. Not because it's not good, because it is excellent. And not necessarily because I've been too busy, because, grand scheme of things, that the evenings haven't been too busy in life regards for the last almost a week since it came out last Friday. Been a bit scared, to be honest with you. It's the Grace chapters, man. And I think as well, I've probably not done myself any favors, because I've purposefully played it at night, lights out, headphones on full blast. I rarely ever play games with headphones. Only if I'm playing on like game chat, multiplayer, like my friend Tom. I rarely will play with headphones on, because otherwise I tend to quite often game playing things like FIFA, or recently Pokemon Fire Red on the Switch, which has been a nice distraction from the terrors of Raccoon City. Nice little trip down memory lane, because I've never actually played Fire Red. I played Red on the original Game Boy. Fire Red, I believe, is sort of like a GBA or DS upgrade of it. Probably GBA. Don't know about DS. Anyway, I digress. So that's been nice to sort of jump back into that 2D world of pocket monster fighting. But yeah, it's Resident Evil Requiem. Goddamn, the run button for Grace, she doesn't seem to run. She's and I'm playing it as it's meant to be. First person for Grace, third person for Leon. I am even playing it on classic mode. I'm not playing it on easy mode, which, if I want to finish the game, I may have to reconsider my stance there and sort of revert back to the norm. But so far, I am trying to play the game as it is intended and not be a little bitch boy about it. It's jumpy. I mean, to give an idea for people who have played the game or are playing the game, my pal Tom has already completed it and started it again. I don't understand how that's possible in the space of like a few days. Fair play. But I've gone through the West Wing as Grace. I've opened up the East Wing. I've started doing this blood vial testing malarkey. And I've also found myself pretty much cornered by a whole bunch of zombies with no ammunition, and a lot of narrow corridors. So it did not take much for me to go, you know what? Hey, I'm going to save. I'm going to put FIFA on. I'm going to put a podcast on. That's what I was sort of getting at before I distracted myself. Yeah, I normally will play games like FIFA or Pokemon with a podcast playing, because I don't need to listen to the music on Pokemon. I don't need to listen to the commentary on FIFA. I'll often have a podcast on, or doing some of that stuff. But then also I've been Warhammer. This is the other thing, because I know some listen to the Ministry of Horror know that I have been interested in dipping my toe into the world of 40k. I am slowly learning. Now, it's been a year. It's actually been a year since I got the I think it's like the Ultramarines Champions Pack. You got like 5 Ultramarines in it. I got that. I got some paints. And I also got the hardback Codex book, which is very, very cool artwork in that book. It's very dense. It's got all the rules in it, but it's also got a lot of the lore about the worlds and the various armies and factions, etc. So we're not going to spend too much on Warhammer for non-Warhammer fans, but if there's that kind of crossover here, you're going to get a bit of an insight into into my my approach to it. So I got that about, it turns out, a year ago, but it's only in the last few months that I've really started to just find it therapeutic. And I think part of it is we had such a hectic last year leading up to our wedding. Incredible wedding, incredible time in Vegas, and then going across America. We then came back straight into, getting the house sorted. We had some, heartache with one of our lovely poochies. Um, and then it was Christmas. And then after Christmas, we had the lead up to our UK party. So we had a lot of our guests, our family or friends couldn't come to America. Obviously, it's a huge ask. So we had a UK party, and that was a great fun, amazing. But I think because I've probably been feeling quite overwhelmed with one thing after another, and there's always life things going on. It's part of adulting, and we've got more life things on the horizon, as there always is. But I was feeling a bit like, it's just kind of non-stop at the moment. I found, like, whether it's the building of the miniatures or the painting, I've just found it therapeutic. I mean, I'm not very good at the painting, but in building, I don't really think you can be bad at building. I've only done, obviously, Space Marine miniatures thus far, but so I haven't built any dreadnoughts, or any larger sort of constructions. But I just found it therapeutic, and I finished about 2 or 3 weeks ago, maybe three plus weeks ago, the pack eventually. So this past weekend, me and the wife said, "Look, let's go out. We've got some errands to run. We've got to go to Costco because I wanted to check out their new protein section, which is very, very, very good. For gym boys and girls, I got a lot of creatine for a very low rate. Very happy there, and also some clear wave Vimto protein." I know I'm talking about everything but horror right now, but we went to the shopping centre, and in the shopping centre is the Warhammer shop. God damn, they get you. They get you every time. The staff are just so friendly and helpful that you can't help but get suckered in a little bit. So we'd gone there, and I'd sort of prepped my wife in the car there to say, "Look, don't let me get overboard. Don't let me, go crazy. I'm either looking for the Death Watch or Black Templars because I like the armor. Not so much about like all of the lore, because I've only recently sort of been listening to some of the lore on Death Watch. Not looked into the Black Templar, although I believe that they have a rep. But I like the armor styles. Black Templar have that sort of like Templar medieval style sort of thing going on. Death Watch just look cool, and that's what Titus is in at the start of Space Marines 2, the video game. So, we got in there, got chatting, so helpful. Said that, if you want to do Death Watch or Black Templar, you could just get Ultramarines and paint them black. It's no big deal. You can then also get these little add-on packs. So if you want to change, what really just differentiates them is the what's it called, like the paladins, the shoulder pad things, or the crest on the front. You can get these little packs where you can add those things on. It's very, very helpful. He showed me the kill team. The kill team for the Death Watch. Very, very cool. So I was like, well, I'm going to, if I've got a Death Watch team and that's a quick way to play the game, I'm going to have someone for them to fight. So it was, I can't see what they're called. It's like, it's not Chaos Marines, but it's called like Ravenclaw Night Watch or something like that. They're these like kind of Ultramarines that hold corpses up, and they've got a very, very, very cool appearance. So I've already built and painted, and I'm fairly happy with my paint. It's definitely my best paint yet. But I've painted one of the Death Watch, and I've made up last night one of the it's not Chaos Marines, is it? Let me just check. Nemesis Claw, Night Lord's Chaos Space Marines. Oh, there's the camera. Yeah, it's pretty good actually. It's like £2.50 less than the Death Watch pack and twice as many miniatures. All in all, very, very happy. Will I do some more content on Warhammer? Well, I don't know. I mean, I did a while ago, back when I lived in my flat, I did a video of me doing like a speed paint of one, and I got a lot of comments that opened my eyes to the fact that you can't just use the paint from the pot. You need to do you need to do a base coat spray, and you need to dilute with water. All these things, all these little helpful tips, sometimes not said in the most helpful ways, but maybe I could do that again. Don't know. We shall see. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Even if I'm not like going to be playing the game anytime soon, hopefully at some point. But overall, it's just therapeutic, really. Like sometimes if you've had a busy day of work, there's drama going on, blah blah blah. It's just nice to spend like an hour or so just painting. And yes, at some point I do plan on getting those little magnifying glasses with the light on them, because I'm sort of going cross-eyed trying to do the detail paints. But anyway, that's a huge ramble. We're going to blitz through the horror news because we're going to, as I say every time, keep this show lean. Let's get into the horror news now. All the horror news comes from bloodydisgusting.com. Great website, great social medias. Check them out. Love their stuff, as we know from the history of this show. So first up, Nina Kiri experiences auditory horrors in first undertone clip. Alex DiVincenzo writes, Nina Kiri of The Handmaid's Tale gets her first taste of auditory terror as she listens to mysterious sound recordings in the first clip from Undertone. The horror film hits theatres March 13th via A24, with Dolby Cinema early access screenings taking place March 9th. Writer-director Ian Towson makes his feature debut on the project, which earned him a gig helming the new Paranormal Activity movie. Kiri stars as Evie, a paranormal podcast host who moves into her dying mother's house to be her primary caregiver. When she receives audio recordings of a young pregnant couple experiencing supernatural noises, she realises the woman's story mirrors her own. Each new recording scratches at her sanity, drawing her into a fate she cannot escape. Adam DeMarco, Michelle Duquette, Keena Lynn Bastidas, Jeff Young, and Ari Millen round out the cast. So there's a lot of buzz about Undertone. Scariest new horror coming, terrifying. It's a new concept of it's like auditory horror, but in a horror movie. And I'm interested. It's got my attention. I do always think, when you get these buzz phrases early doors before there's any footage released, any trailers, which we now have a trailer, that it could be to its detriment. It's over promising and potentially under delivering. But I have watched the trailer for it. Creepy imagery, I will say. In terms of the auditory aspect, the trailer does what typical horror trailers do when they sort of focus on little blurting sounds. Where you get like a little sort of buzz and then blah, 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 blah. That's the best that I can sort of describe it. Weird little blurts that are there to make you jump. Is it going to be like that in the film? I'm not sure, because that would probably make me think it's more of a jump scare horror. But it's an A24 release, and they don't really do that too often. So, yeah, colour me intrigued for Undertone. Next. Now, I've got mixed feelings on this series, because I've only seen the first one. Wolf Creek Legacy. First look at the return of Mick Taylor in brand new movie, exclusive to Bloody Disgusting. This is from John Squires. 20 years ago, director Greg McLean introduced the world to Mick Taylor, a terrifying outback serial killer who shot, cut and stabbed his way to horror icon status in the original Australian horror movie Wolf Creek. After 2 movies and 2 seasons of a TV series, Bloody Disgusting can report that production on the third film Wolf Creek Legacy is underway. Previously announced, Cineverse and its horror arm Bloody Disgusting have exclusive North American distribution rights, and we are planning a wide theatrical release of the film. Wolf Creek Legacy is being filmed in South Australia. The third instalment of the international hit horror franchise sees the return of the menacing Mick Taylor, with John Jarrett once again playing the Outback's most vicious murderer in the brand new movie. Wolf Creek Legacy centres around an American family on a dream trip to the Australian Outback, who soon draw the attention of serial-killing pig shooter Mick Taylor. A hellish nightmare ensues as the couple's 2 children escape, only to be hunted by the infamous killer. The third instalment sees Jarrett reunited with the creator of the iconic franchise and its original director, Greg McLean, who also did Rogue, The Balco Experiment, and Jungle. I've not seen Jungle, but the other 2, good. Who is producing this new project alongside Christian Meliore, Bianca Martino, and Jeremy Bolt. South Australian Sean Layhiff directs the new feature with a script by Duncan Samarasinghe. Okay, so I've never seen the second film. I haven't seen either season of the TV show. The TV show was on Prime for a time, but I think when this was announced a little while ago, and we'd sort of discussed about franchises for me to look at that I hadn't watched all the entries of, that they were no longer available on there. I think Series 1 might have been on ITVX or 4OD recently, but I'll have to check back. But the first film is decent. It's pretty heavy going. And I think, spoiler alert for a 20-year-old film, I think for me it was one of those where it was difficult for me to say that I loved Wolf Creek because it felt quite hopeless. It sort of felt for me at the time, and maybe my opinion will change on a rewatch because I have only seen it like a couple of times years ago, was that it sort of fell into that kind of torture porn area because we're just following protagonists being brutally tortured and maimed in horrible ways, and there's no comeuppance. There's no real, there's a bit of fight back, but it's all for naught, really. And I get that's part of horror. You always have your horror rarely has a truly happy ending. There's usually a bit of a hint of something further to come, depending on its subgenre. But I did feel that it just kind of felt a bit mean, harshly mean. I don't know what happened in the second film or the 2 seasons of the TV show. But yeah, I mean, if people love the second film, think it's worth a go, how it compares to the first, let me know. But I've never followed up on it. Not that I disliked it, it just, it's kind of like Eden Lake. I've never rewatched Eden Lake because it's heavy going. I mean, Eden Lake is a lot heavier going than Wolf Creek, but it's just mean, not my bag. Moving on. H.P. Lovecraft fans, gaming fans, fans of Cthulhu and all the various different iterations of games that have that name slapped on it. Dive into the story for Cthulhu the Cosmic Abyss with the new trailer, Mike Wilson writes. After teasing fans with the demo during Steam Next Feast last month, Nacon and developer Big Bad Wolf have released a new story trailer for the upcoming Cthulhu the Cosmic Abyss. In addition, digital pre-orders are now available, as well as the Relay edition of the game for those players who want to explore every layer of the experience. The new trailer features heavy atmosphere and reveals more about the research conducted worldwide by Ocean Eye, which has made a major discovery that has led a team of scientists to the gates of the mythical city of Relay. I can never pronounce it. It's a Cthulhu word. It's an old god, old one's name, If anyone's read H.P. Lovecraft and read much of the Cthulhu mythos, there's a lot of names that are just like, I don't know how you pronounce that. Cthulhu the Cosmic Abyss takes place in 2053, so it's interesting that it's not your typical, it's a Cthulhu thing, so it's 1920s. The player takes control of Noah, an agent specialising in occult affairs. Noah is sent to the depths of the Pacific Ocean to investigate the mysterious disappearance of researchers belonging to the Ocean Eye Company. As he progresses through the city's winding paths, the line between nightmare and reality blurs under the influence of the most powerful of cosmic creatures, Cthulhu. Between loss of sanity, ancient rituals, and cosmic monsters, this quest for truth comes at a price. Cthulhu the Cosmic Abyss offers an investigation on a razor's edge, where Noah must maintain his lucidity while thinking outside the box. Solving the puzzles in each chapter involves making important choices and leads players to dive ever deeper into the Lovecraftian mythos. Meanwhile, the Relay edition includes the following: the full game, the Eldritch soundtrack, the Euclidean art book, an exclusive Arkham Horror TTRPG scenario, the additional side quest, The Shining Trapezohedron. Cool. I've tried a couple of Cthulhu type games. They always seem to be like, the ones I've tried always seem to be just that kind of level below being pretty good, decent. 6 to 7 out of 10s, no more. Whether that's because the graphics are like kind of good, but a little bit shonky, controls are okay, a little bit erratic. You know, there's always just something that's a bit of a it loses some shine, which is a shame. I mean, this one looks interesting, but again, the trailer sort of gave me that feeling of okay, in this day and age, out of sync dialogue to the graphics. You know, come on now, spend a bit of money. So, but yeah, if you're a fan of the Cthulhu-esque games or the H.P. Lovecraft world, there you go, new game coming out soon. Aren't you lucky duckies? Next up, Resident Evil Requiem has now sold over 5 million copies since launch, which was Friday. Mike Wilson writes up, in what's probably the least shocking news of the week, Resident Evil Requiem is a success. Capcom has announced that the 9th entry in the main series has now surpassed 5 million units since its launch back on February 27th. If that doesn't smell like success, Capcom also revealed that cumulative game sales since the very first title launched way back in 1996 have exceeded 183 million units as of December 31st, 2025. The news only adds to the series' success, which celebrates its 30th anniversary later this month. Resident Evil Requiem successfully elevated the essence of survival horror by heightening the interplay between intense fear and exhilarating action, says Capcom in the press release. Capcom remains firmly committed to satisfying the expectations of all users by leveraging its industry-leading game development capabilities in order to create highly entertaining gameplay experiences. Set 30 years after the Raccoon City incident, Resident Evil Requiem follows FBI intelligence analyst Grace Ashcroft, assigned to investigate a string of mysterious deaths in the same place where her mother was murdered 8 years prior. When a police officer goes missing at the hotel, legendary DSO agent Leon S. Kennedy is also dispatched to the scene. As Grace and Leon's paths converge, they must face their past and uncover the truth behind the Raccoon City incident that changed the world forever. But while the terrors of their memories echo in their minds, will they relive the nightmare or finally offer up a requiem for the dead? So it's available now on Switch 2, PC via Steam and Epic Game Store, PS5 and the Xbox Series. Yeah. I mean, it's so good so far. I'm still early doors into it. I believe the campaign is like 11 to 15 hours, so I'm not very far into it at all. But it's a great mix. It's a great mix where you have the intense scares of the first person world of, I suppose, 7, 8 wasn't so much scary. 8 was a good game, good first person game. I really enjoyed 8. I preferred 8 to 7 overall for its variety. The castle. No. The variety, like the dollhouse level was just disturbing. And 7, 7 is great, but the goopy monsters just bored me. Everything was a bit too sepia toned continuously, so I think the setting just wasn't really didn't really kind of sink its teeth into me, as it were. But so far, yeah, we've got the action with Leon, which is basically Resident Evil 4 kicking ass. It's just a badass. And then Grace, you barely ever get any ammo, and it takes a lot to knock down a zombie. You're not going to kill any zombies. Well, you can. Yeah, I've killed one. But it's just intense. It's intense. And it only takes a couple of hits to die. God, I've jumped a lot playing that game already. And I'm not very far into it. Next, John Leguizamo joins Mike Wilson. Not Mike Wilson. Mike Flanagan's The Exorcist cast. Alex DiVincenzo writes, John Leguizamo has been cast in the new take on The Exorcist from writer-director Mike Flanagan's... what? That's that. There's an apostrophe there that probably shouldn't be there. THR reports the Emmy winner joins Scarlett Johansson, Jacoby Loop, Diane Lane, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Sasha Cale in the project. Plot details remain under wraps, but the film will tell an all-new story set in the Exorcist universe. It is neither a remake of William Friedkin's 1974 horror classic, nor a sequel to 2023's Exorcist Believer. Johansson will play a mother with Jupe as her son. Leguizamo may be playing an antagonist, according to THR. Flanagan is producing via his Red Room Pictures alongside Jason Blum for Blumhouse Atomic Monsters and David Robinson for Morgan Creek Entertainment. Executive producers include Red Room's Alexandra Magistro and Blumhouse's Ryan Turek. So it's set for a March 12th, 2027 release. I'm interested to see what Mike Flanagan does. I don't think he does any wrong, really. I do, I have fallen off his fandom a little bit. I never finished The Midnight Club. I haven't watched Fall of the House of Usher. I do sort of think that from a feature film perspective, it would be nice for him to do some original stuff once again. Because I think the thing is as well, like, he's working supposedly on a Dark Tower series for Prime, which, okay, interested to see if they can finally do that justice. I am a Dark Tower fanboy now. I finished the series. Took me a long time to get into the Dark Tower series, but I have travelled with the quartet to the tower. So hopefully that does come to fruition, because the film isn't really very good. It doesn't have that much to do with the Dark Tower. It's trying to basically be a culmination of, well, the last novel the last novel really, which just doesn't make much sense without the quartet. So it just doesn't really work. It's just Jake and Roland. But then he's also been announced to be doing a new adaptation of The Mist, and I think a lot of people may agree that The Mist doesn't need a new adaptation. The Frank Darabont one is excellent. It's got one of the most infamous endings of a Stephen King adaptation, more so for the fact that that isn't the ending in the novella, the short story. It's different. So why are we doing a new adaptation of it? I'm interested to see what he does with the Exorcist universe. He's a very good director, but I just sort of feel at some point, will he ever cinematically move away from adaptations and sequels? I don't know. I think it's a shame, because Hush is excellent. Hush is one of his originals. Is excellent. And then finally in the news, there's a bit of a weird one. Scared to Death trailer. Lynn Shay and Bill Moseley star in supernatural horror comedy. Alex DiVincenzo writes up. A seance opens a door that refuses to close in the trailer for the supernatural horror comedy Scared to Death. Horror icons Lynn Shay and Bill Moseley headline the indie film, which will haunt select theatres next Friday, March 13th via Atlas Distribution. It centres on a group of filmmakers who attend a seance at an abandoned orphanage in order to research their horror movie. When the ritual begins, the cast and crew are trapped inside and tormented by the spirits of the children and something far worse. Olivia Paris, Victoria Konefel, BJ Minor, Jade Chinaweth, Ray Dawn Chong, Lucinda Janae, and Kurt Dimer round out the cast. Music video helmer Paul Boyd writes and directs, loosely based on actual events. Yeah, I watched the trailer for this. We've talked quite a few times on the show about how horror comedies are, it's difficult to stand out as being good, because sometimes it relies too much on hokey comedy that isn't actually that funny. I like Lynn Shay and I like Bill Moseley, but the trailer for this did not make me think that it's going to be either A, a good horror film, or B, a decent comedy. And certainly didn't feel like it was going to blend the lines very well. So a bit of a downer at the end of the news, but we are now going to move on. See, we're keeping this kind of lean. We're going to move on, although we haven't got to Scream 7 yet, so we could be here for a while. We're going to move on to the reviews, and first off is Together. So with all of our reviews on the Ministry of Horror, we talk a little bit about the film, try not to go too much into spoilers, but go into a bit of the plot. I then talk about the highs, the lows, in my opinion, and then I give it a score out of 10. If you agree or disagree, let me know on socials. I'll do the socials plugs a bit later on. Quick swig of beer for the working man. Together is a 2025 supernatural body horror film written and directed by Michael Shanks in his feature directorial debut. Stars Dave Franco and Alison Brie as a couple who move to the countryside where they encounter a mysterious force. Okay, we'll read a bit about the plot on Wikipedia. A man returns home from searching for a missing couple with his 2 dogs. A short time later, he is awakened by the dogs barking, and when he arrives at their kennel, the 2 dogs are painfully fusing together. A short time later, Millie Wilson gets a job teaching elementary school English and moves to the town with her longtime boyfriend, aspiring musician Tim Brassington, who has been emotionally distant since the recent passing of his parents. Shortly before the move, Millie proposes to Tim at a going-away party held by their friends, but he hesitates to respond. The next morning, Millie meets her new co-worker, Jamie, and he tells them about the walking trails near their home. While hiking near their home, they fall into an underground cave during a rainstorm and decide to camp inside for the night. Tim drinks from a pool of water, but Millie refuses. Upon waking up the next morning, Tim and Millie find their legs partially stuck together by a type of gooey material, but dismiss the incident after separating, believing it to have been caused by mildew. So that's the general kind of setup. If you've seen the trailer, you'll note that there's some really odd body horror things going on here. Arms appearing to merge together, eyelashes intertwining. I mean, from that aspect, graphically, it's very, very, very good. So from the body horror perspective, you get your fill here. Dave Franco and Alison Brie, they're very nice. I don't know them personally, but they're always very, very good in their films. Like Dave Franco, he can play an annoying dick. He can also play like a affable loser. He's generally a decent actor. Less problematic than his relative has been in the news. I don't know. And Alison Brie, I always think of Alison Brie from the TV show Community. I loved the first few seasons of that. I mean, I love it overall, but it did get a bit crappy near the end. She's always very entertaining as well, and they're a real-life married couple, and their chemistry works really well in this. So you have this couple moving out to this lovely woodland area, and there's a difficulty there. Dave Franco's character is very dependent on Millie. He can't drive, so now being out in the middle of nowhere, he can't really get out and go and do anything, without her. He needs a lift to the bus stop. He needs a lift to the train station. So there's a bit of a dependency element there. She has this new budding step in her teaching career, so it's a really great opportunity for her. And they have this incident in this cave, which then leads to strange occurrences going on. Tim finding himself at times sort of going into a bit of a fugue state when they're separated. He sort of, his whole body sort of goes all weird, and he loses control. They find themselves sort of being drawn physically together, almost against their will. There is a very funny moment. Funny but terrifying moment when a moment of passion strikes them. A moment of passion they've not had for a while, since sort of being quite distant prior to the move. And they give into that passion in a very public place, a place they shouldn't have. But once the passion is finished, they are stuck. Their body had started fusing. The way that this story develops is quite interesting. You can sort of see where it's going from the general plot development points, but not to the extent of it being, oh, well, it's obviously this, I mean, I guess you could say that, but it's not in a derivative way. Like, it moves along nicely. It's not it's not a dampener on the story, how it develops. I liked that. It leads to quite an interesting finale, and the finale didn't go out as I expected. The final scene was was a nice little touch, but overall, it's a decent film. Actually, it's different. It wasn't entirely what I was expecting, but I like that. The trailers don't give too much away, and the explanation for why what is happening, I think was fine. This is currently available to watch on Prime in the UK. I think it's a solid 7 out of 10. It's decent. It's different. It's worth a go. The performances are good. Music, can't remember much about the music, but it wasn't bad. It was fine. It was fine. The performances were fine. It was good. Good and fine. Decent. Good, fine, decent. I don't have a very extended vocabulary. 7 out of 10 for Together. But what I do have a vocabulary for is Scream 7. So I saw Scream 7 on Monday night with some friends. Scream 7 is a 2026 American slasher. It's the sequel to Scream 6 and the seventh installment in the Scream film series. Directed by Kevin Williamson, from a screenplay he co-wrote with Guy Busick, from a story by James Vanderbilt and Busick. Stars Neve Campbell, Jasmine Savoy Brown, Mason Gooding, David Arquette, Matthew Lillard, and Courtney Cox reprising their roles from the previous films, with Isabel May, Anna Camp, Michelle Randolph, Jimmy Chatro, McKenna Grace, Asa Germain, Celeste O'Connor, Sam Reichner, Mark Consuelos, Tim Simons, and Joel McHale also starring. The film follows a new Ghostface killer who targets Sidney Prescott's daughter. Okay. We won't talk about the various changes that happen behind the scenes from Scream 6 to 7. We've sort of discussed that a number of times in the news on the show in the past. But I went into this quite excited. You know, I'd heard mixed things, but it had a great opening box office. The trailers looked good. Return of Neve Campbell as Sydney. I was a big fan of Scream 6. I know a lot of people dunked on it, but I found it really enjoyable. Story's a bit ridiculous, sure, but as a slasher film, I thought it was enjoyable. I really actually enjoyed 6 immensely. So, in Woodsboro, Stab franchise fan Scott and his girlfriend Madsen visit Stu Marker's house after hearing rumours that he might have survived having a television thrown on his head. They are killed by Ghostface, who sets the house on fire. Okay, I'm not going to read any further because it feels like a bit of a reveal is going to come. But ultimately, we're introduced to Sidney Prescott. She has a new life for herself. She's married to a police officer, Mark, but the Mark is now played. Well, this Mark is played by Joel McHale, and I believe it is a different Mark. It's Mark Evans, and I don't think the Mark from Scream 3 was Evans. So she has married a different Mark. She, I believe, has had kids with this Mark. So rather than recast Patrick Dempsey, I think they've just sort of gone, well, she married a Mark, but it's a different Mark. Okay, fine, whatever, not a big deal. So she's married and lives in the small town. She runs a coffee shop. She looks after her children. A couple of her kids are staying with Mark's mum at the moment, but her eldest teenage daughter, Tatum, who's named after Tatum Riley from the first film. Tatum is struggling a bit. You know, she's a teenager. She sort of wants to know a bit about her mum's life, but her mum doesn't really want to talk about it, so all she knows is what's in the films, you know, the Stab films. Then killings start occurring. And a lot of the focus seems to be on attacking Sydney and also attacking Sydney's daughter. I'm going to just say now, I don't really want to say too much because a lot is not revealed in the trailers that happens quite early on in this film, and the film is full of a lot of reveals, right? Okay. If you want to listen to the spoilers, it's on the Patreon. It's about 20 minutes of really rambling about this film. What I will say, kind of jumping ahead a bit, Gail Weathers returns, you know, about a third into the film, and she is joined by assistants Mindy and Chad Meeks Martin. So Mindy and Chad back from Scream 5 and 6. I knew that they were back, but I know that the other two of the core 4 weren't, for the obvious news reported reasons. And I didn't really know how they were going to necessarily fit in, but they actually turned out to be probably my favourite part of this film. Working as assistants for Gail, they just bring the humour. They bring that level of humour and just fit seamlessly in. Whether that's discussing the horror trope, the horror rules, you know, suspect lists, etc. They were very good in this, I have to say. And everyone performs well. No one acting-wise is bad in this. Sydney's great, Gail's great. Gail's development is decent in terms of she has the shakes. She has to take medication because of the attack in New York. So from that aspect, good. Other aspects that were good, the kills, pretty brutal in places. Good development there. Great chase sequences. You know, that's what you need from a Scream film, is character under duress in their home or at a workplace. Big chase sequence leading to a violent death, right? Ticks those boxes. What it doesn't, the tropes, it harps on about the suspect list, and that is to its detriment. I'll return to that in a moment. It also harps on about how Sydney sat out from New York. So Sydney didn't return. Neve Campbell didn't return for Scream 6, pay dispute, undervalued, etc. So she wasn't featured in that film. She sat it out. But the way that it's harped on in this is like they're like a SEAL team, like special forces. Like, oh, yeah, were you in Guantanamo? No, I was knee deep in the shit in Nam. It's like, well, you sat out of New York. Like, yeah, she had no reason to be there. Like, Gail, I think, was there for work, or I can't remember exactly. Hey, it's an excuse to rewatch Scream 6. But Gail was already there. The core four were there already, which is, why they were targeted in New York. Blah, blah, blah. There was no reason for her to come. She came in 5 back to Woodsboro because Dewey had been killed, close relationship there, etc. It made sense. They sort of made it a bit cheesy by saying, oh, let's go find who this is and kill them. Like, again, it sort of makes them seem like, well, we're the badasses, we're coming in to kill. Like, well, you're stopping a murderer, yes, but in the real world, you would kill if you're defending yourself, not go out on the hunt. A little bit cheesy, but whatever. It's a slasher film. You have to throw a little bit of logic and real world sense out the window. Of course you do. It's horror. You have to do that with every horror, right? So you can't get too hung up on that aspect. But they do harp on about how she sat out of New York, and I thought, well, yeah, because she was safe with her kids. There's no reason for her to go. I thought it was a little bit cheesy. They bang on about having to shoot them in the head, which, again, it's a typical thing in the Scream films. Of course, it became a staple after Scream 2 that got to shoot them in the head. They always come back. Great, okay, whatever. It's part of the series. They do it to such a ridiculous level in this. It is overkill. It is. Matthew Lillard is obviously returning in some aspect, as is David Arquette, as is blah, 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 blah. Oh gosh. Matthew Lillard, David Arquette, Laurie Metcalf, Nancy Loomis, and Scott Foley, who played Roman Bridger. So Stu Macker as well as David Arquette's Stewie Riley. They all appear in various size roles in this film. I won't say how. I didn't mind it. I thought it was an interesting enough way to do it. Of course, Skeet Ulrich returned as Billy in 5 and 6, and it made sense. He was like a vision that only Sam could see, and it's like a mental health sort of thing. The illegitimate daughter of Billy. That made sense. They do toy around with the idea of Stu, as mentioned at the start of the little blurb. It's interesting. And to be honest, a highlight along with Mindy and Chad is just seeing Matthew Lillard in this again. He just falls naturally back into that Stu character from 30 years ago. It's always a joy. It's always a joy. It's a joy to have him, reprising that role in this way. I thought that was nice. Okay, that does lead us to what I didn't like about the film, and for the most part, and that is the finale. The reveal of the killers is the worst in this entire series. It just, from the point of revealing who the killers is. And that's not going to be a spoiler to say killers, it's a Scream film. I know part 3 was only one, whatever. But the reveal was so bad. It was so bad. Up until that point, I'd been enjoying this film. It's decent, got some good jumps in it, good chase sequences, good kills. Acting's decent. Mindy and Chad, very amusing in the right levels, right? You get to the reveal, and then the final fight and the cheesiness I mentioned earlier on of Overkill, and it just knocks it down. It just knocks it down. I came out of the cinema thinking, up until that final moment, the final 10 minutes or so, this could have easily been a 7 out of 10. I realise I'm looking really pale in my camera, but it's too late to adjust it. Sorry, just distracting myself. I would have easily said up until that point, it's a good 7 out of 10 film. It's it's not amazing. I still preferred 6. I'd probably put this on a level with 5 up until that point. 5's decent. It's not amazing. It's decent. 5 or 4. I mean, 4 is, I still think, is a little bit It's a little bit overrated in my opinion. I always find myself getting a bit bored in 4. I don't think 4's that memorable, but 4 has a very good finale, to be fair. But the reveal, and after the annoyance that I had with the reveal, and it just then made me think about the things that I actually didn't really like. You know, sometimes for me, I can come out of a film thinking, yeah, that was great, loved it, whatever. I've got a score, and that score is probably going to sit there. Sometimes I come out of a film and I'm like, yeah, I enjoyed it, but then I think about the things that maybe I didn't enjoy so much. But with this, it just left such a sour taste in the mouth. I came out thinking, well, I can't go higher than a 6. But as I said, I did my little bonus pod for the patron yesterday, and I can't go. I have to go 5. I have to go 5 out of 10. This is the worst entry in the series. And it is a shame because it didn't have to be. They wrote themselves into a corner with the talk of the suspect list. Because whilst that is a trope of the series, who's in the suspect list? It's got to be the boyfriend. It's got to be the best friend. It's got to be the parent. Blah 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 blah. There's that's a staple of the series. I don't have a problem with that. But because they just harped on so much in this one about the tropes, that they had to go in such a direction that it was all. It's just I can't imagine many people seeing the direction this goes and going, yeah, damn, awesome final act, awesome reveals, best Ghostface killers yet. I would be very surprised. I mean, everyone's got their own opinions. Everyone, some people love 3 and think it gets crapped on a bit too much. A lot of people love 4, and I'm sort of in the minority that's a bit like, yeah, it's fine. It's not that good. And also, I love, 6. I know 6 a lot of people hate. A lot of people hate the General Ortega, Melissa Barrera films. Whatever, there's a difference of opinions, of course. It's quite a divisive series, but a very successful one. And this is probably the most successful entry or opening weekend entry in the series, which is great for horror. We want horror to succeed. And with a great opening weekend means we'll probably get a sequel. I just sort of feel that maybe it needs to rest a while or have a huge reset with a sequel, because for me, like, that final 10 minutes just really made me focus on the negatives so much, and that's something I don't like doing. I'm a glass half full type of guy, but disappointing, man, disappointing. 5 out of 10 for Scream 7. Anyway, Ghouls and Fiends, that is it for another edition of the Ministry of Horror. Be sure to follow us on socials. TikTok, we're getting closer and closer to 2,000 on there, which is awesome. If we can get 10,000, hey, chingle chingle. But that's still a long way away, but it's a great lot of progress, since last year. So very, very thankful for that. If you listen on podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, be sure to subscribe to the channel, follow the channel, whatever it does on your platform, and if you can, review it. Give us a 5-star or whatever score you want. Give us any sort of review, but give us a nice rating. That'd be great. YouTube, the Dolly review that I did the other week, that's doing nicely over there. So I did a little review as a bonus pod of Dolly. Check that out, but be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, Ministry of Horror, also on other socials. That's it for another edition. Ghouls and Fiends. I've been your host, Tez. Thank you very much. Goodbye.